Good morning and welcome back to Take It Slow Homestead. I'm Carol and today I'm going to show you how I preserve broccoli. Now this broccoli I did not grow in my garden. It's beautiful. I wished I had grown it in my garden. But alas, my garden was attacked by those infamous broccoli butterflies and caterpillars, and all I got from my garden this year was about one meal's worth of broccoli out of several plants. This coming summer I am bound and determined to do better. So this broccoli I bought at the store. Now if you don't have a garden but you want to learn how to freeze your vegetables, then just go ahead and buy them at the store and then get a good canning and freezing cookbook and follow it, and you'll have success in preserving some of your vegetables that you buy at the store. So whether you buy them at the store or grow them in your garden, it's good to have a freezer full of food. Now let's start freezing this broccoli. The first thing I'm going to do is clean it off. So I'm going to rinse it in some cold water in my sink. On the broccoli, there are small side leaves like this that I have always taken those off. However, they're perfectly edible. In fact, even the large leaves on your broccoli are edible. And what do we usually do with those when we grow them? Well, if you're like me, I used to always just throw them away, but this coming year, when I have my awesome broccoli growing in my garden, I'm going to try some of those leaves and see how I like them. What I like to do with this thick end, this part of the stem, is I cut it down the middle just to make smaller pieces, and then I slice it so I end up with chunks like this, which are good to eat also. And then I take these pieces that are shaped like a little tree and cut those off. As I go down, I will again slice down the center of the stem and cut off pieces of that stem into small skinny chunks. Now with these tree-shaped pieces, if it's too big to go in my mouth, I cut it down the center, so then I have two pieces like this, and that way it's easier to eat, which is the whole idea. So then I'm going to put these in this colander right here. And finish cutting this one. Cut off some of the stem pieces. When I get down to the very end, the top, well, the very top, I guess, of the broccoli, I cut off some of the side pieces, nice and bite-sized. Now it's even a little bit smaller, but too big to eat. So what I like to do is just slice it down and just take off a piece, slice it down, so they're more bite-sized pieces. I'm going to cut a few of these in half. Those bigger ones, take Take all these bite-sized pieces, put them in my colander. I'm going to do the same thing with these other 2 heads of broccoli, and then I will show you what we're going to do after that. Here's all the cut up broccoli, and the next step is to put it in boiling water and boil them, or in other words, blanch them. What you need to do is bring the water back up to boiling. Okay, those are all covered with water. I'm going to put the lid back on for just a little bit until the water gets back up to the boiling point. Now the broccoli is boiling. So now we set the timer for 5 minutes. Now, I blanch the broccoli for 5 minutes because in my canning and freezing cookbook, it says that for blanching broccoli, you blanch for 4 minutes. However, if you live in an altitude between 2,000 and 4,000 feet, then you add 1/2 minute to the boiling time. If you live in an altitude which is between 4,000 and 6,000 feet, which is where I am, then you add 1 minute to the blanching time. So instead of the 4 minutes that the recipe says, I blanch them for 5 minutes because of the altitude that I live in. So it's important to, number 1, get a good freezing and canning cookbook, and number 2, follow it. Now, the reason I knew to increase that time is because right at the first of the section on freezing, it has a little paragraph that says what to do if you live in high altitude. So be sure you check that. Okay, our 5 minutes are up. Turn that off. Grab my pot holders because the handles of this pan are hot. And we're going to go back over to the sink. I'm going to drain these now. In a strainer. And now I'm going to put them in a sink of ice water. This sink right here, see the ice? It's very cold water, and that water is going to prevent the broccoli from continuing to cook, because it doesn't need to be cooked all the way. It just needs to be blanched, which means partially cooked. It doesn't take very long to cool these off in ice water, and after they're all cooled off, I will be putting them back in this drainer just to get most of the water off. And then I'm going to put them on this cookie sheet. Now you may be wondering why I'm going to put them on a cookie sheet. And the reason is I want them to, first of all, freeze most of the way and be somewhat separated from each other, okay? I don't want to freeze them all the way yet because I'm going to be putting them into some vacuum sealed bags. You know, the kind of bags where you take all of the air out of the bag before you freeze them. And I don't want them to have sharp edges because they're so solidly frozen. Because if you get a really super sharp edge of your broccoli, it might poke a little hole in your bag, and then it's not going to seal, of course. So I freeze them part of the way. I just kind of say I'm going to freeze-ish them because it's not a complete freeze. Okay, so I'm going to take these broccoli pieces out of the water. If there's some small ones that are hard to get, I just get a hand strainer. And get those. All right. I like to shake off the water a little bit. You can feel it just dripping out the bottom when I do this. Because I don't want a ton of water on my cookie sheet, I just want the broccoli. All right. And there. And then I spread them out a little. I'll bring it over here for you. Like that. And then I stick them in the freezer. Now, in this freezer, in my kitchen, I already have this tray right here. And you know what? They are pretty close. Some of them are kind of soft in places, and some are getting more firm in places. If they're still really soft, then you take the risk of sucking up water out of these when you're sealing them. The vacuum sealer will really suck hard, and some of the water that may not be frozen yet will start coming out of the broccoli up into your seal and prevent the seal. So I'm going to leave those in that freezer for a little bit longer, and I'm going to take these out to my other freezer. I think the broccoli is frozen enough, so hopefully it is. We'll soon find out. I'm just going to use a pancake turner to scoop it off that cookie sheet in case it needs a little help. Okay, here is a bag. It was actually on a roll. It wasn't already formed into a bag. It was on a roll, so I've already sealed the bottom end of it. Now, let's see how much broccoli we can get in this. Okay, I think that's good. Meals, I would say. Fingers crossed it's frozen enough. I think it is frozen enough, but for some reason it is not sealing. I'm going to try another bag. I have one more bag that I'll try. There isn't any moisture coming out from the broccoli, so it's either a problem with the bag or with my machine, which seems to be just like it always has been, so we'll try again. Going to wait for 5 or 10 more seconds because they say to wait 20 seconds between sealings. And this is an older vacuum machine. It's a food saver and I've had it for a long time. So hopefully it is still working. All right, I'm going to try something else. This is a gallon-size bag. Fairly new box of bags. I don't really need a gallon size, but I'm just going to see if this makes a difference. There you go. I'll do it again with the rest of this tray. They still feel frozen enough. I usually use these big gallon-sized bags for when I buy a roast and I know I'm not going to be using it soon. Then I will repackage it in these gallon size and freeze it. Okay, there's that one. It looks so weird to have all that waste of space up there. I do have some of these bags that are already used and washed and dried and stored. And I think with my next tray of broccoli, I will use some of those bags. I already know that some of them won't seal, and that's why I wanted to use this new roll for these, is because I wanted it to for sure seal, and then they would not seal. Now, I'm wondering if because this was the end of a roll of those plastic bags, which were just not bags, but in a roll, these came from the end of this roll. So I'm wondering if that was a problem, why these did not seal, these three. I don't know. I think maybe what I'll do is reseal the bottom of these three bags, that I cut off of this roll, and I will see if that helps on my next tray of broccoli. I don't know, it's just one of those things that sometimes happens and you have to try and figure out what the problem is. The thing I like about the rolls is that this inner roll cardboard piece is as hard as a rock. So I know that it's got to be good for something. I'm not going to throw it away. If you have a good idea what to use for this, whether it's a craft or some way to use it to store something in it or with it, or I don't know, let me know. The last thing to do when you're freezing something like this is to label it and then stick it in your freezer. So it's easy enough for me to tell that this is broccoli, and if someday it gets so old in my freezer that I can't recognize it, I will not eat it. So I'm not going to write down the word broccoli. I know that's what it is. Today's date is January 14th, 2022. So January 14, 2022. Okay, now I'm going to go stick those in my freezer. I hope you learned something today. And if you didn't learn anything new, maybe you were reminded of something that you already knew. So if you have some garden vegetables, maybe by now you have carrots or potatoes that are starting to grow roots or grow eyes, and you want to do something with them. Well, remember that you can get a good canning and freezing cookbook. Follow the directions. If you want to freeze them, there's recipes in your book, I'm sure. You can blanch them and freeze them. And if you freeze them most of the way first on a cookie sheet, then you can use your vacuum sealing machine and you can freeze them, and they won't ooze out any moisture and cause your seal to fail. You'll have success if you do it this way. Anyway, I do. The only failure I have is that sometimes I can't get my machine to work right. And I think it is because the bags I was using were not good enough, or maybe when I sealed the bottoms of those bags that I made off of that roll, that the seal did not seal well enough for the bottom. The air might have been coming right up from the bottom and out the top. I don't really know, but with my next sheet of broccoli, I'm going to try again, and I'm sure that eventually it will work. And I'll put them in my freezer and they will stay for a long time. When you vacuum seal your vegetables like this, they will stay for a long time. Sometimes in your freezer you'll go to grab a bag and you will notice that for some reason one of them has formed a leak of some kind, and you'll have frost on the inside with your vegetables. So if you find some like that, eat those first. The ones that are more successfully vacuum sealed, then save those for later times because they'll last a long time. Okay, thanks for watching. Remember that even when you take it slow, you can accomplish a lot. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.